When Luis Hernandez landed in the United States at 27, he had 2 suitcases and one single, powerful belief: if I work hard enough, I can build a life here. He didn't have connections. He didn't have savings. And his English, though he was trying, still made people impatient. He arrived in Phoenix, Arizona, a place where the heat felt like a wall and the streets were a maze of unfamiliar names. His cousin gave him a spot on the couch in a small apartment. It wasn't much, but it was a start. See, back home, Luis was respected. He'd studied engineering. People knew him as smart, reliable, and capable. But here, in America, none of that history mattered. He was just the new guy, the one with the accent. The one people spoke to slowly, as if he couldn't understand. So, Luis did what he had to do. He took the first job he could find, washing dishes at a restaurant. The work was brutal. 12-hour shifts on his feet, his hands raw and cracked from the constant soap and hot water, but he never complained. He just kept telling himself, this is temporary. What hurt more than the physical exhaustion was the silence, the isolation. He'd be in a room full of people, but conversations would fly right past him, a blur of words he couldn't quite catch. Jokes would land, and he'd only understand them seconds too late. Sometimes, customers wouldn't even look at him. At night, he'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, the sound of traffic outside a constant reminder of how alone he was. He'd wonder, did I make a huge mistake coming here? But then, he would remember why he came. He didn't come for comfort, he came for opportunity. And that's when he decided to take control. He set rules for himself. Rule number 1. No wasted nights. No matter how tired he was after his shift, he studied English. He devoured grammar books, practiced pronunciation in the mirror, and learned the strange idioms that natives used without thinking. Rule number 2. No victim mindset. If someone treated him poorly because of his accent or background, he didn't let it weigh him down. He observed it, learned from it, and moved on. He refused to let someone else's prejudice define his reality. And rule number 3, the most important one: build skills quietly. He knew that manual labor would pay the bills for now, but it was his knowledge, his skills, that would change his future. While others relaxed after work, Luis was reading books on systems, design, and technology, feeding his engineering mind. Months turned into a year. The restaurant promoted him to kitchen assistant. The pay was a little better, the respect a little more. It was still exhausting work, but something fundamental had shifted inside him. He started understanding people better, not just their words, but their culture, their humor, their expectations. His confidence was quietly growing. One night, a coworker said, "Man, you work like you're trying to escape something." Luis just smiled and replied, "I am a smaller version of myself." That single sentence became his mantra. 2 years in, Luis finally moved into his own small apartment. It wasn't anything fancy, but it was his. He bought a desk from a thrift store, placed it by the window, and that desk became his new battlefield. He started applying for jobs in his field, jobs that aligned with his engineering degree. The rejections came thick and fast: lack of U.S. experience, position already filled, or, most often, just silence. Each one stung, but none of them broke him. He simply adjusted his strategy. He started volunteering his skills. He took on small contract gigs. He built projects on his own time to create a portfolio. He didn't ask for pity, he just kept asking for a chance. Finally, at 32 years old, he got an interview for a junior technical role. The interviewer scanned his resume, a mix of odd jobs and self-taught projects, and paused. "You've done a lot." Without much recognition, Luis looked him in the eye and said, "I learned how to survive before I learned how to shine." He got the job. The pay wasn't life-changing, not at first, but the direction was. Luis worked harder than anyone on that team. Not because he was afraid of being fired, but because he had so much respect for the opportunity he had earned. He asked questions relentlessly. He took every piece of feedback to heart. He stayed late, not to impress his boss, but to improve himself. The years passed. Luis grew into his confidence. It wasn't loud or arrogant. It was a quiet, grounded strength. His accent was still there, but it was no longer the first thing people noticed. It was just a part of his story, not the whole story. By the time he was 38, Luis was leading projects. He was mentoring new hires. He was the one interviewing interns who reminded him so much of himself all those years ago. One day, he was in a meeting and saw a young immigrant intern hesitate, afraid to speak up. Luis saw the fear in his eyes. After the meeting, he pulled the intern aside and said, "Don't shrink yourself. Your voice matters, even before it sounds perfect." In that moment, Luis realized just how far he had come. Today, Luis Hernandez owns his own small consulting firm. He hires people based on their discipline and their curiosity, not their background. His parents visit from his home country, their eyes wide with amazement at the life their son has built from scratch. In his office, Luis still keeps that first pair of worn-out work shoes from the restaurant, not because he misses those grueling days, but because they are a constant reminder of a powerful truth. The dream doesn't reward comfort. It rewards consistency. Luis didn't get lucky. He became successful because he refused to stop growing silently, patiently, and relentlessly. And his story holds a message that so many of us need to hear. You don't need to have a perfect accent. You don't need everyone's approval. And you definitely don't need any shortcuts. What you need is belief in yourself, the discipline to do the work when no one is watching, and the courage to keep going when quitting feels like the easiest option. Because your dreams don't care where you started. They only care that you keep moving forward. Thank you so much for watching. If this story resonated with you, please consider subscribing for more content like this. We'll see you in the next one.